So I have a problem with my hot tub. Hi, it's Jeff from Hot Tub Owner HQ, and I'm glad you're here with me. It's almost July here in Central Texas, and even though I have my hot tub on economy mode and set to a temperature of 80, it's still reading 105, which of course is not only unsafe any time of year, but it's incredibly hot for summertime here in Texas. And I often tell people to set their hot tubs to economy mode or sleep mode and then lower the temperature, because theoretically that means the heater is only going to kick in during the filtration cycles and not the rest of the time. But for some reason on my hot tub, that's not working. Earlier in the year, I did replace the control pack, and I do have a previous video where I show you step by step exactly how I did that. If you want to check that out, check it out right up here. There's a bunch of little switches inside of the control pack. That's the international symbol for little switches, by the way. And even if yours is not the exact same control pack, it's probably very similar. Almost all control packs are made by the company called Balboa Water Group. And I suspect one of those switches probably needs to be flipped. So if you're having a similar issue, because I've got other friends with hot tubs and I've done the normal procedures and their hot tubs are just fine in the low 90s, which is perfect for a hot summer. But if you're having the same issue I am, let's check into this together. I'm going to remove the panel of my hot tub. I'm going to have to open the front panel of the control pack. And of course, I'm going to turn the power off because we are dealing with a lot of electricity in there. So let's get to it. Now, I have these foam panels here, which I'm going to need to pull out. And I do that basically to help with the noise. My hot tub, being an older hot tub, is a little noisy, maybe noisier than yours. But this helped to kind of keep the noise at bay because my bedroom window is just right there. And when the weather's nice, I like to open my bedroom window, but I don't want to hear a noisy hot tub. And it's noisy just going through the filtration cycle. So here's the control pack. And again, this is a brand new control pack that I installed earlier this year. And I'm going to need to open this cover, but first I'm going to turn the power off. Okay, I've positioned the camera to give you a little bit better view. You can also see my good friend Mr. Toad right down here. But to get this cover open, there's just two screws right here that we need to do with a Phillips screwdriver. The little switches that I was talking about are these little white switches against the red plastic background. And as you can see, they just kind of flip up or down. Now, I don't want to just go flipping switches randomly, so I'm going to consult a manual first to see if I can determine which one or ones might be the best ones to try first. But as I pulled this cover off, because I wanted to see what the model number was, I see this handy dandy little chart right back here on the back side of the cover. And it's telling me basically what the switches do: up, which is on, or off, which is down. Okay, so I have analyzed the switches and I've looked to see how every switch I have is set. As you can see, most of them are in the off position. I did not find one, however, that seemed like it would solve the issue. None of them were labeled heater or anything like that. The only possible one I saw is this one here, which said circulation mode. Currently it's set to off. But since I don't really know what that does, and I was not able to get any information in Googling it, I don't really want to mess with that. So what I thought I would try, you see here, the silver thing here is obviously the heater tube. Now, that's the power. I don't want to touch that. And of course, the power is off right now while I've got this open, but I don't want to mess with that. But you see here, there's a wire here, and then there's a wire here, and both of those plug right in there to that panel. So what I'm going to do is simply unplug that. Now, that will mean that my heater won't work whatsoever. Now, it could also give me an error message on the topside panel. I don't know yet, and I won't find out until we actually do this. But that's what I'm going to try next to see. And I'm not really worried about the hot tub getting too cold because it's been close to 100 degrees during the day, each and every day. And my hot tub gets a lot of sunshine. So I'm going to unplug those now, and then I'm going to cut the power back on and see if the topside panel is giving me any error messages. So I can just probably pull this off. Let's see. So that's perfect. So now I'm going to put those down there. I'm going to cut the power back on and see what this thing does. I could, of course, edit my videos to make it look like I know everything under the sun and that I don't ever make any mistakes. But I figure that you're likely doing a lot of these same things that I'm doing. And so I kind of like to explore it with you. But what I just did does not work. This is what happens when I try and turn the jets on. As you hear, it's just kind of clicking and the jets are not coming on. Looks like no matter what button I press on the top side panel, it just clicks and is non-responsive. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the power back off, reconnect that, and we'll go back to the drawing board. Okay, so I've reconnected the heater, power's back on. Jets work just fine, and you can see how noisy this thing is without that foam panel in front of it. But we've still got the issue of my hot tub being way too hot. And I still think the answer is one of those dip switches down there. But I don't want to just flip a bunch of them, especially if I don't really know what they do. So I'm going to start by flipping them one at a time, and then obviously having to wait a little while to see if I notice any difference. First, I'm going to get a thermometer and do a quick check of what the actual water temperature is reading right now, bearing in mind it's been off for a few minutes. All right, so I got a handy dandy kitchen thermometer here. I'm just going to see what it's reading. And it is indeed reading 105.3. Obviously too hot, especially for the summertime. But now that we've got that baseline established, we know that if we make any changes and we see a big drop, because remember, my actual thermostat is set to 80. So we know if we see a big drop that whatever I did actually worked. So again, we're going to flip these switches one at a time until we figure out the right combination. And I suspect that the switches that could make the biggest difference are switch number 4, which in the on position, it says circulation acts like pump 1 low. And in the off position, which is where it currently is, it says circulation 24 hours with 3-degree shutoff. So essentially that means that it's going for 24 hours. So that could be part of the problem, because I do have it set to sleep mode or economy mode, where the heater only kicks in during the filtration cycle. But if this thing is constantly filtering, then maybe that's the issue. I'm going to start with that switch. Again, that's switch number 4, and it's currently off. I'm going to switch it to on. Power is back off again, by the way. Okay, so switch number 4 is now switched to the on position. The first thing I want to do is flip the power back on and make sure that it's functioning properly. So let's press the buttons here and see what they do. So it seems like it's operating normally. Right now the screen displays a PR, but that may just be because the power was indeed off. So I'm going to walk away for probably a minimum of 8 hours and then come back and see if this thing is acting any differently. If it is acting exactly the same, then we know we haven't fixed it yet. And if it is indeed quite a bit lower, then we know we're onto something. So I'll be back. Okay, so it's now been 48 hours since I flipped that one little dip switch on the control pack. I am happy to report that my hot tub is now 101, whereas it was 105, which is obviously not only way too hot for any time, but it's way too hot for summertime in Texas. However, can it get any cooler than that? Remember, I have my temperature set to 80, so even at 101, it's well above that. So I want to know if I can get this down even lower than that. Ideally, I'd have it somewhere between 95, 90, 98 at the most. So let's pop this cover open. There was one other switch I mentioned earlier in the video that I wanted to try switching. So let's try switching that and see if that has a positive effect also. The other thing we could try, we could top off this hot tub with some hose water, which even in summertime is still going to be in the 70s. Hot tub water without the power traditionally will drop about 1 degree per hour, but it doesn't ever get much lower than the ambient air temperature. And lately here in Central Texas, it has been hitting 100 every day. So it's not really that surprising that it hasn't gone significantly lower than that. In fact, if I were to cut the power, it probably would get even cooler than that at night, but then go back up again during the day to match the ambient air temperature, because as you see, my hot tub gets a lot of sun. But let's pop this cover open. Again, I've got the power switched off, and let's flip that other dip switch and then see if that has any impact on the temperature as well. But I'm noticing with the power on that none of the controls are doing anything, and that must be because I flipped that switch. So obviously that's not a good solution. So let's turn the power off, flip that switch back where it was, and then I'm going to try topping off the hot tub with cold water and not only see if it cools it down, which obviously it will, but I want to see if it will actually stay at that lower temperature even in the sun's heat. All right, so as you can see, the water is flowing. I do actually want to check the water temperature of the hose just to see what it's coming out at. And it's actually reading 86. I'm going to see what the actual water temperature in the hot tub itself is reading. It's reading 101. So I'm surprised that the hose temperature is actually in the 80s. Normally I'm used to hose water being in the 70s, but the hose has been sitting in the sun all day, and it is probably close to 100 this afternoon. But let's top this off. It can get a little fuller, maybe even a little over full, because we lose a lot of water to evaporation when it's hot outside. Okay, the jets are still on, so I know that's a little noisy, so I apologize for that. I think this thing is about as full as I want it to get. As you can see, it's almost an infinity edge hot tub now, which is actually kind of cool. I'm going to check the temperature, but because it's only been going for maybe 10 minutes, it's probably not dropped as much as it's going to drop once the water gets completely circulated throughout the entire hot tub. Right now, though, it's reading 99, which is still an improvement. We're still moving in the right direction. So what I want to do now is actually turn the hose off, get rid of it, probably close the lid, and then leave the jets on so that it can circulate some more and see if it continues to drop, or if it, at the very least, if it just doesn't continue to go back up again. That's really what I'm looking for. Okay, it's now been about an hour since we topped off the hot tub with the hose water, which again was reading 86, I think, and I'm happy to report that the water temperature dropped to 99 degrees and has stayed there for 1 hour. In other words, it hasn't gone back up again. The hot tub has been running. I just cut the power just now to start this video to make it quieter. But in the heat of the sun on a 100-degree day here in Texas, I'm happy to report that my hot tub is now down to 99 degrees. At the start of this video, as you saw, it was 105. 99 is still not quite as cold as I would want it to get. But this hot tub is also quite a bit older. I believe it's from 2012. And I think I've done just about as much as I can do to get it to a normal temperature. But I'm hopeful that it's going to maintain that 99-degree temperature, because I can get in that in the mornings and evenings, even in Central Texas, even in summertime. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it helps you use your hot tub in summertime as well. But I'll see you in the next video.